Hello. So it's about 7:20 my time, which means 20 minutes ago the season finale for the Wheel of Time dropped, and I'm about to watch it. But I just wanted to record some of my thoughts before I go into this. And here's the thing. I've been able to enjoy this to some degree, actually more than I thought I would be able to. So that's a good thing. I went into this expecting the worst, and some of that has happened, but it's not as bad as I was worried about. I've got some coffee here to sustain with an awful lot of cream. Well, it's half and half. I like half and half of my coffee, no sugar. Yeah. Anyway, that'll probably derail whatever I was about to say. Anyway, it's not as bad as I was worried about. It's not as good as I hoped for. I've been able to enjoy it more than I thought I would, which is saying something. But it's still not what I wanted it to be, right? This final episode may, I don't know if it's not going to change probably any of what I'm saying right now, because the ending of this particular story is like arguably the weakest part, even in the books. So the changes here, I'm up for, basically, more so than some of the others. We'll see though. If there's something really crazy, I'll be back shortly to say that. But I just want to record this before I know what they do or do not change, just in case there's something really out there. But I'm unbelievably happy to see this come to screen in any form. I'm happy that it's been as popular as it has been. I haven't really had a chance to try to analyze like who's liking it and why, and it's as I said, not my ideal version of this, not what I would do, but I don't necessarily know what it is I would want, because what I want probably isn't possible. But the bottom line is, if this is successful, other fantasy series will have doors open for them. Some of them, the more they get made, the better the chance that one of those gets made really, really, really well. So I want the best for this. I'm going to enjoy it as best I can, no matter what. That's the bottom line. I love seeing this world come to life, and versions of these characters come to life, and a version of this story come to life. I love all of that. And I would encourage anybody who's enjoying this show at all, or even if you're not, if you haven't read the books, give the books a chance, because it's a different enough telling of the story that either if you're enjoying this, it may enhance it, and if you're not, you may actually like the books, because the books are great. They're not perfect either, but they are great, especially in context of when they came out and the sort of advancements they made at the time. And then I guess really Stormlight Archive for me is the next advancement, more or less. And Game of Thrones was sort of somewhat in between, was more of a transitional thing. But the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson sort of, for me at least, goes back so far anyway, closer to the Wheel of Time, and then advances it even, more for me personally. And I'm sure I haven't read a ton of epic fantasy lately, so I'm sure there are more advancements, but I'm hoping this will lead to a Stormlight Archive series at some point where Brandon himself is very much involved and will be able to guide it. That's kind of what I'm personally hoping for. I'm also personally hoping, even if this Wheel of Time adaptation doesn't, isn't exactly what I wanted, can open the door for more Wheel of Time related stuff of some kind. Maybe another adaptation, maybe just more books, maybe something, I don't know. I like this world and these characters. I would like to see more of it. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling. I'm gonna go watch the finale. I'll be right back. Coffee is ready. let's do it. We're back. I'm gonna need, as you just saw, some of this right now. It is a scotch from Islay, Ardbeg. Ardbeg, I'll mispronounce this. Ardbeg Ugadel? I don't know, I'm sorry. And it's that, which I think I already showed. And it's from Islay, so it should be a little smoky, and I like that. And that's gonna fit the mood here, perhaps, you know. Very nice. Okay. So, excuse my experimentations here. All right. So I just watched the season finale of Wheel of Time, season 1. My first thought, they changed less in some ways than I expected, which is a good thing for me. I was expecting the Green Man to be gone, so I wasn't even hoping for that anymore, and he's not there. I was expecting them to stick to the Blight and the Eye of the World sort of being the Dark One's prison, as they said, or apparently. I still think that's going to turn out maybe not to be the case completely, but I don't know. So that I was expecting them to stay somewhat true to what they have said in previous episodes, and they basically have. They did not go multi-dragon. They did not veer away from Rand. I wasn't really thinking that was happening, but it just felt like it might be a possibility. They did make one minor reference from Padden Fane talking to parents, saying maybe you're not the dragon, but you all have a part to play. Yeah, that's true to the books. So that's great. That's great. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. I'm not as excited about it for a couple reasons, but you know, off the top of my head, I don't have any real significant problems. I'm sure there's something that somebody's going to notice, but my expectations, I think, have landed in the appropriate department finally, and I can see that they are staying to the overarching story, because by the end we still have the horn showing up, albeit in a different manner. We still have Padden Fane stealing the horn, even though that's really more of a book 2 thing. But whatever, that storyline's going to move forward as before, and we have the Shan-Chan showing up at the end with some apparent changes, although I'm not sure they're as significant as some people have been talking, because the collars do seem to still be there. There's also just apparently some kind of mouth gag thing. I don't know, we'll see. They're not how I envision them, but it ain't that different. And I liked the tsunami at the end there. So, okay. I'm gonna try to go through this in as best order as I can remember. But okay, so the prologue, or the cold open. I was initially hoping, before I even started watching the episode, that they were gonna do the prologue from the book finally. So initially when I saw 3,000 years ago, or whatever it was, I thought that's what was about to happen. And then it didn't seem like it was that. And then it turned out, no, this is Lews Therin showing up. Lews Therin Telamon, the previous dragon. So it almost could have been, but no, it was actually like a scene previous to the scene in the book. That certainly could have been, yeah, it's another one of those things that we didn't see, but it could have been, right? So I actually really enjoyed that cold open. I was a little bit confused, but it made more sense the way they sort of tied it in at the end to some degree. It's a little loose, but I think it's supposed to be loose because they're going to obviously go further. And I won't be totally surprised if that prologue from the first book still makes an appearance down the road, possibly at the beginning of the next season, or at some more appropriate spot. I don't know. They don't need to do it, I guess, because they've touched on it, but it might be a good refresher at the beginning of the second season. I don't know. We'll see what they do. But I enjoyed that cold open a lot. It's not necessarily what I envisioned, but it's a really interesting and cool vision of the past and the previous age and the end of the previous age. And the technology's all there in place. Like, yeah, I mean, they're kind of giving more away up front than the books did in a way. Be more explicit about it. I mean, it's a show. They got to show it. If they're going to show these scenes, you're gonna have to see it. Okay, I'm okay with that. I like that. I don't know how it plays for everybody. You know, we're so far away from the books as written that if you were hoping for it somehow to course correct now, I mean, that would be crazy, right? So, but this felt like another thing where this is a scene that could have actually happened within the book's storyline that we just didn't really get, or if it did happen in the books, I don't remember. I don't think so, though. Certainly not this early. There may be some kind of version of it in the books that I don't remember because it's been so long since I recently have read through the first 3 again, but anything after that, it's been so long I don't really recall. So that was cool. Then, of course, we jump right back in to where we left off last episode. So the first thing I recall, I know we had Moiraine and Rand going through the Blight, and Rand has a dream, and we get our introduction to what is apparently the Dark One. I was not expecting this approach here. And this is more or less the same approach from the books. I mean, it's executed in a completely different way, but I really enjoyed this. Okay, we're going to humanize the bad guy. We're going to have him try to seduce, more or less, the Dragon Reborn by being nice to him, which makes a whole lot of sense. The temptation here, well, it doesn't really happen in this scene, but this sets that up. You get to see the previous vision of the bad guy become a more human character so they can talk. And then he, of course, kills Moiraine in a dream, which you don't know it's for sure immediately a dream, but Rand thinks it's still a dream, and then it does turn out to be a dream. I loved that, actually. I really liked the tone of that. I loved the look. Like, you could see... I don't know if this is really the Dark One. I suspect not. But I don't know. They played it like it was. I have a really strong, I believe, guess as to who that really was. But it could have been a version of the Dark One because of the way it ended later. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. I like that there's some mystery here. I like that they didn't just explicitly go one way or another. This is designed to definitely come off as the Dark One for anyone who hasn't read the books, but then also to still stay true to some of the ambiguity that cropped up in the books that I thought maybe they would do away with in the show. They didn't. Anyway, so Rand, as far as we can tell, has his first real conversation with the Dark One. And he kind of makes fun of him, kills Moiraine. He tries, what he tries in that scene. I need to rewatch it again. I just remember really liking the scene, and then Rand doesn't really go for it, and he wakes up. And then they continue, Moiraine and him continue on, basically. I'm just going to keep going with that thread right now because that's what I'm thinking about. Of course, eventually they end up at the eye, which is totally different from the books. And I didn't expect the Green Man, but I was still hoping the eye would be what it was in the books, and it's just not. So I guess that's just not, you know, as far as we can tell, this really is the Dark One's prison and the seal and the whole 9 yards. I don't know if they're going to stick with that. Maybe they are. It's simpler to not back off of that now, but they, you know, assuming the show continues, they got plenty of time to do whatever they need to do or want to do. So the interesting part here is though Moraine gives him that sangreal. They have a really good conversation before they get to the eye, and you know, Moraine tells him the story about how when she was struggling to learn what had happened to her and how she was first introduced to learning how to call on the one power, where basically it was required that she had to basically be beaten until she feared enough for her life that she just did it. I don't remember if that's in the books for her, but it was appropriate to keep Rand going and to assure him that once you need it, it'll be there. And she does give him a sangreal made for men, apparently. That's interesting. Even though she didn't think it would be him, she was still prepared for it to be a man. She must have had, I guess she probably had one for women too, in case, I'm guessing, but you know, I don't know. So that was all set up. I enjoyed that scene too, basically. There's probably some problems there lore-wise, but whatever, I've let go of that for now. If you're worried about that stuff, read the books, because they're awesome. And it's different than this. So then they get to the eye. And Rand is, tries to go on alone, but then, Moraine's not going to let that happen, because Rand somehow finally realizes that Moraine's in danger too here, because she's not the Dragon Reborn, right? It took him a while. Anyway, so we get there, and they get down to the bottom, and he touches the seal, and this is what was interesting to me. He has this vision, which is very reminiscent of a certain training or test that has to get passed by some other magic users in the world, that now he has to basically pass. And it's like a test administered by the Dark One, apparently, where he gets a vision of a possible future and is tempted by the idea that he has the power to just make this happen, which theoretically he does. And it was really beautifully done, the struggle there, I thought. And the few different scenes where he finally comes around and it's like, this is what I want on some level, but it's not what she wants. And that's not really her then. And I don't want, I don't know. I thought that really resonated with me. I thought that was really well done. And I really like the portrayal of the Dark One, or Baalzamon here, supposedly. That was good for me. And then he apparently, I'm just jumping around, but apparently comes around, channels, and then seemingly wipes out the Dark One. Although, if you're watching really closely, go back and look, the Dark One smirks right as he gets evaporated or whatever happens there. So it's not quite as clear cut, but obviously that's not the end, as we find out at the end. There is, obviously there wouldn't be much more of a show if that was really the last battle. And the Quendalar that she ends up with, if they stick to it, is a part of the seal on the Dark One's prison that's now broken, probably, although the shape of it and everything's very different than, at least from what I could tell, very different from the books. But then again, so is the Eye of the World and the seal that's obviously there, and a very large, example of it. So there's some differences there that have changed. So that aspect of this and how that plays out, and Moraine lets him go off on his own, is pretty good. I don't know how I feel. I mean, about the Dark One cutting her off, or maybe, I don't know if he actually stilled her, but he definitely cut her off and tied that off. Maybe he stilled her. It seems like it, because otherwise, if he was gone, as he appears to be, then whatever weave was holding binding her or blocking her would have dissipated. But this is a different move. I mean, I was expecting maybe for her to die possibly, but she didn't. And they did sort of, almost, they tried to pretend to go that way, which is funny. But instead they have her cut off, which is an interesting move. This is different, but I'm okay with it. There are consequences to doing this that I can't think of all of them right now, but we'll just see. We're gonna have to go with it. Like, I don't know how I feel about that exactly, but in the context of this episode, it worked fine. And she was ready to kill Rand too, right there, until she realized he was gonna stand up to the Dark One and not take the bait, so to speak. So that, I enjoyed that. Okay, so that, and her letting him go off like that all sets off, to some degree, a very similar storyline to the parts of the second book, and the third book, for that matter, depending on how far they actually take that. I have a feeling this next season's going to blend the second and third book pretty good somehow, so we'll see, since we've already jumped ahead a little bit here. Okay, so the rest of it is, most of the rest of this was implied, but never shown. And also in the books, we had some implication that Rand's battle with the Dark One ended up influencing the results, or winning the battle of Tarwin's Gap over. That didn't happen here. So instead we had, all the channelers in the area, including Nynaeve and Egwene, basically wipe the whole Trolloc army out single-handedly. And then we got to see some Aes Sedai burn out as a result, and we almost see Nynaeve die and burn out. Well, she did burn out and almost die, I guess. That's interesting. And then all of the others went down, which is different. The burning out stuff looked a lot worse than I imagined it while reading the books. Not that it happened here in the books, but they talked about it plenty. So the visuals of that were really well done. That was some disturbing, uncomfortable stuff. And then Nynaeve saved Egwene, and then Egwene, had to learn how to heal pretty quickly. And that happened slowly enough that I wasn't fully convinced that Nynaeve really was bring-backable, but apparently she was. All right. That, and the channeling there and the way they wiped out the army was really enjoyable to watch. So getting this version of Tarwin's Gap, the battle there, was interesting. I didn't really, the battle that actually happened like in the gap itself that eventually more or less got lost, I didn't really pay that much attention to. So maybe on a second watch, but that mostly just felt like time wasting to me. I wanted to see what was going on with Rand and Moraine, honestly. And then Lan obviously goes out. That was a good scene between Nynaeve and Lan, where Nynaeve admits she didn't track him, she tracked her, and then told Lan how to track her. I don't know if I believe that Nynaeve would have figured that out and Lan didn't. But for their relationship and for the show, it works out okay. And I do really, even though Lan is not quite the same Lan, and Nynaeve is a little different too, I'd say Nynaeve is less annoying in the show, and Lan's way more emotionally in touch in the show. And I like the Nynaeve change. I don't love the Lan change, but I have always liked the relationship in the books, and it's nice, like seeing it on the screen and seeing it work with these two actors who are really good at it. I've really enjoyed watching that go down, to be honest. And so constructing this reason for her to give him a hint as to how to go after Moraine is pretty selfless, but then also serving her own, like, her own agenda as well. I mean, it's sort of perfect. It was sort of perfect in that way. And they both realized it and appreciated each other for it, sort of. It shows you how perfect they are for each other, which was also the case in the books, right? I like that. So that was good. I also loved they had that scene with Egwene and Perrin where we're okay, we'll always be okay. So they're like sort of hinting at a really close like friendship sort of bond. It kind of paid off the love triangle stuff in a way, in a really satisfying way, especially if that's the end of it, because I think it probably is. And that scene sort of paid that off for me. It made the rest of that feel pretty good. So we'll see. But as of now, that I thought that worked pretty well. And it was nice seeing them have a little moment, honestly, because they did. I still felt that even reading the books, I remember the first time wondering if there was something there, even though he said there wasn't in the books. And I just, I didn't love in the previous episode where they focused on it quite the way they did, but this scene was good. So I liked it in this one. Okay. So let's say Padam Fane, Perrin, Loyal. I don't know where this is going. I can't imagine that Loyal's actually done already, and that's it. To me, it just doesn't seem. I mean, they didn't necessarily. He definitely got stabbed and wounded. I'd need to watch it again to see if they were actually showing him dead. I'm assuming he's just wounded, because Loyal dead would suck. And while they haven't really used him as well as they should have, in my opinion, so far, if he stays alive, they have chances to redeem that. And he is sort of the record taker of this Taveran journey, which gets brought up again by Padam Fane, which is pretty cool, I thought. And so, I don't know. That seemed unnecessary, but I guess they probably want to leave some question mark, but I highly doubt he's actually dead. And then they show, Perrin's now going to be up on himself. Like, he's conflicted. He didn't go after Padam Fane. He didn't try to stop him. He didn't try to get the horn back. He just let it happen because he's sitting there in conflict between the way of Leaf and not. And Perrin was definitely one of my favorite characters in the books. But I admit, like, up until this point, he doesn't become that until later anyway. And he's very much not that in the show so far. So I don't know. I think I just need to remain patient on that front. And that's the sort of point here, right? I don't know. Padam Fane's really good. I like his portrayal in this. It's very good. So I think that's it. I think that's everything I can think of right now. And I don't know, I'm drinking a little bit, and I didn't drink enough of this, and I'm not disappointed enough to be like slamming drinks right now. I'm not as excited as I was last time, but I'm pretty happy with the end, and it makes me want to keep watching, which is, there's been a lot of speculation that this was going to be like some ruinous ending for the season, and well, I'm sure there's going to be crying about that online. I don't see it. I don't see this as a problem. This show has a bunch of attention. It ended pretty strongly. There's some pretty interesting question marks moving forward for both book readers and non-book readers. Obviously, if you're needing it to be a one-to-one adaptation, you're way done by now, and this didn't help probably, so great. Although this isn't as crazy different as some people were worried about. No multi-dragon, no Captain Planet, no Transformers or Power Ranger, Wheel of Time stuff going on. So at least not any more so than the books do it, because the books do have important roles for all of these characters, even though there's only 3 Taverin and not 5 in the books, right? So anyway, one thing this has done for me is I've finally been rereading the books again after all these years. So I'm enjoying that. So I'm good. I'm looking forward to season 2. I can't wait. I thought maybe I would be more negative, but I'm not. Thank you. Thanks. You know, I wouldn't have a problem if there was a new showrunner at some point moving forward to finish this off, but if that were to happen, it really could end up being much worse than it is. Just keep that in mind, anyone who's out there disappointed like I am to some degree, but it's also just not as bad as it could be. That's not a great argument. And as much as some of you feel like this isn't Wheel of Time at all, it is. It really is. For me, it is. Like, I see the seeds of it. I see, you know, them trying to stick with it pretty closely, you know, even with their own preferences and their own versions of the telling of this. You know, if it were me making it and if I was show running it, it'd be different, but I might have screwed it up in some other horrible way, so who knows. And I probably would have tried to be more one-to-one, which maybe wouldn't have worked. I don't know. I still would love to see that. I hope somebody does it someday before I die, but probably not, right? Anyway, this isn't the series killer, guys. It's not. And it was really good, I thought. And, you know, if you hate it, just keep reading the books, or love to hate it and keep talking about it. Because, you know, honestly, all of that back and forth online is just helping the show out anyway, right? And that may lead to more fantasy on TV and more adaptations, and maybe eventually something that's closer to what you want from this. So who knows? So go ahead. Let's all keep whining about it and going back and forth on it. And I'm sure season 2, which I'll continue to cover once it happens, will have its ups and downs as well. Anyway, so there's no next week for this one. I've been watching some other stuff. I'm going to go back to my Vinegar Syndrome stuff. I did recently get this in the mail. Yeah. And I watched the first movie out of this, which was King Boxer. If anyone's interested in that, I think I'm going to do a video somewhat related to this as well. It's a really cool set. I'm into physical media, if any of you guys are. I've started watching some of the Witcher stuff, but it seems like there's enough of that out there, and I haven't read the books. But I did watch the first 2 episodes, and I liked especially the second episode, more so than the first. But I liked both of them. I don't know. So if anyone watching this has requests, by all means. But I'm going to continue with the Wheel of Time as it continues. I'll probably cover the Lord of the Rings when that starts happening. I may pick up some other TV show, but in the immediate future, it's going to be more back to my Vinegar Syndrome stuff and the Shaw Scope stuff and any physical media I pick up. And I might talk about Matrix once I actually watch it. Haven't watched it. I kind of want to rewatch the old stuff first. We'll see. Anyway, so until next week when I post some kind of video, see ya.